Okay, today we are with Glen Schild, and Glen is the proprietor of GJ Stats. It's his company. He's been building applications for quite some time with Alpha. So, Glen, can you tell us a little bit about your company and, your typical customer, what you typically end up doing?
Hi, Bob. Yes, I've been full-time in business doing this as a developer 14, 15 years now. But I've been using Alpha for a lot longer. So, but my customers tends to be more small SMEs, small to medium-sized enterprises, from 2 staff up. Well, one client's got 300 to 400 staff. But most of them would be in the smaller range, in the sort of 2 to 100 range, shall we say. And I kind of found a niche where it's a market which isn't really doesn't get a lot of support from IT development. They are perhaps perceived as being too small for for the software houses to get involved with, or they may be too small to have their own IT internal technology. But there's a need. So I started out initially by focusing on businesses who were growing, but we're using predominantly spreadsheet to manage their business. And as they're growing, that process of managing everything through spreadsheets gets harder and harder, more and more complicated. So I could come in and build systems off the back of that to take that business forward. So that's kind of how I started, say 14, 15 years ago when I went full time at this. And I built my business up that way. So it's been really successful purely for the fact that my background in financial services prior to this means I can relate to business. Even though I'm a developer, I can talk in business terms and understand the workflow. Because to me that's key. If you can build the most perfect system, but it doesn't follow a business process, it's not going to be used.
One of the things that I found with when I started working with Alpha was that I was able to come up with, they were prototype apps, but they were really quite functional. I could do it really fast. And that seemed to impress a lot of these smaller businesses. When you can listen to somebody's idea, put something together that's backed by, a database, a web app backed by a database that does what they want to do, and you can do it pretty quickly. That's a great selling point.
And that's become even more important in recent years with the innovation that is our cloud, because the ability to take a particular feature or functionality that that particular client or prospective client is looking for, put something together really quickly, deploy it, and then give them a URL to say, go and check it out, see if this is kind of fit for purpose. And to do that really quickly kind of does 2 things. First of all, it shows you understand what it is you want. And secondly, it kind of proves that you are going to be able to deliver something in a timely fashion.
Yeah, and there's nothing like, the proof of the pudding, right? So having a taste. And, the thing that typically happens, and I think it happens probably to everybody, is, once you build something, the company will start using it, and then they'll say, oh, well, it'd be really cool if we could add this or that. So it tends to be an ongoing process that can take software development is an evolutionary thing. And it's rare that you end up, building one app and that's it and walking away from it. It's I think when another company is engaged and you're building custom stuff for them, they constantly are looking at, well, how can we improve our process? And they might say, we'd like to get our customers more involved or our vendors more involved or whatever. So it seems to me there's always these unfolding opportunities once you get in there and prove yourself.
I call it feature creep, where I will go in and talk to a customer, understand what it is they want. They'll have a particular idea about what they're looking to replace and what they're looking to improve upon. So I will spec out, scope out the work to get that done. We'll agree it. We'll put a timetable in. We'll agree a payment plan. And I tend to work on a fixed price as well at that point, which customers really love because they know that if the what I quote is what they're going to pay, and they'll get what they want for that price. there's a risk on me to make sure I get that quote right in the first place. But the point being is I always have this conversation right at the get-go with the client, say, look, when you start looking at what we're doing, got to think of, oh, now we can maybe do that. Or now perhaps we can add this to this process. Now perhaps we can do something else, or maybe expand into a whole different area. So I will tend to have a conversation with them at the top end and say, look, I'm pretty generous. I mean, I'm not one of these persons that will say, no, it's not the spec, I'm not doing it. I'll be generous, but at some point I can pretty well guarantee I'm coming back to you as the bill payer and saying, we need to have a conversation about what I'm being paid for this now, because it's gone beyond the original scope so far.
Yeah, it's interesting that you do it that way. So when I was writing custom software, I didn't do it that way. So I would allocate X amount of time, right, to say, based on the specification that you put forward, this is what I think it's going to take to do it, and it's my best guess, and then I would always ask for a retainer. So basically people were paying upfront for my time, right? So I didn't have to chase them for money, because I can't stand doing that. And that worked well for me. I like that. I like the fact that, everybody knew that, listen, I was writing code that was to, your requirements, right? But I always knowing your requirements are going to change, that, I had it covered. I said, okay, this is what this might be for a month of work or something like that or whatever. But, and then we would just constantly sort of renegotiate where we were. And that worked well for me. So I found it very hard to work on fixed price contracts, because like you said, feature creep is always there. And you know what? It's a natural evolution. It's human nature to see something and say, oh, gee, I didn't know you could do that. Well, can we do this,
Well, the way by doing it that way, I mean, it's kind of worked for me, because I never do have that conversation. I pick up the phone saying, look, remember I'd say, set it out, so I might be having a conversation with you about the pricing. Okay. It's not a surprise. It's not an issue. It's an open discussion, but also right at the original scope of work. So I'll always build in a retainer functionality. So a delivery plan to deliver what they've asked for.
Yeah.
With flexibility if things aren't quite right, but then to have a retainer onwards that we can develop further and manage it. And of course, if I'm managing the hosting platform as well, then that retainer covers that as well. So it kind of becomes a price to get to deliver, to a live application, and then onward payments for retaining that client. And I have to say that I can probably say this, I should be touching when I say this, but I have not lost a client to anybody else that's got across the line and gone live. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome.
The pandemic's not helped, and some businesses have sadly gone by the way, but that's through no fault of anything but the pandemic. So, but no, I've retained a lot of clients. So that tells me two things: I've gotten it right. There's a trust element there. And trust works both ways. I trust my customers and they trust me.
Yep.
So if I say I'm going to deliver it, I'll deliver it. And they know that they'll get what they ask for.
Have you, so in your development efforts, have you ever run into anything that you just sort of a stone wall, something you couldn't do with Alpha? Alpha is being essentially a low code system. At least that's the way they market it. Although I'm not sure it's really low code, because I write a lot of code, but I'm just wondering if you ever ran into any brick walls there, or have you always been able to accomplish what you wanted to?
Always been able to accomplish what I want to do, but I have come across times when I've said to a client, I'm not sure, but I will figure it out.
Sure.
Gone away to figure it out, and I've been able to leverage that within Alpha. So I've come across a situation where I haven't been able to overcome a challenging way using what Alpha gives you. So the low code side of it is great, and that's great for templating, because I have a lot of clients, because I'm self-employed, because I'm my own boss. I do need to template what I do, so I do have like a formulaic approach to how I work.
Yep.
But when things start to get added, then I have to build it, but Alpha's not let me down on it yet. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Do you now when you do deployment, are you typically using Alpha Cloud now, or are you or how are you doing your deployments?
Well, up until probably a couple of years ago, I was using have my own cloud service. So I was hosting a lot through there for small clients, and a few clients have their own IT infrastructure, so therefore they would have their own host app. And whilst a couple of those are like that, having looked out for cloud, and it didn't take long to figure out this is what I need to do. I need to move everything I've got from my own cloud offering to Alpha Cloud for two reasons. First of all, it's so easy to develop. It's so easy to ping out. It's so easy to add a testing platform, a production platform, spin them up in time at all. So for cloud taking care of the heavy lifting, so I'm not having to manage a server. I'm a developer for first and foremost, but having to manage a server as well just eats into the development time. So therefore, by not having that place, so we one or two exceptions, but everything now is back on Alpha Cloud.
Yeah, I mean, just being able to really just focus in on solving the problem rather than the orchestration of the hardware and maintenance and all the rest. It's pretty nice for sure. You don't do any mobile development, do you?
I don't do mobile directly because I found I'm doing a lot of transform development.
I see.
So I'm using Alpha Transform an awful lot because for what I found for most of my clients, I'm building administrative functionality for them, and that might be surveyors out in the field capturing data, delivering items, whatever it be, and Transform just lends itself well for that. And it's the same paradigm for me. A lot of people have balked at the cost of Transform, but they've not really looked into exactly what it does. And again, it's the same concept as Alpha Cloud. I can get applications, Transform documentation forms out there, put data back into Alpha Anywhere because there's so much connectivity between the two, far quicker than I can if I develop mobile apps, which are not really needed for the purpose of what I want. So therefore, it's increasing my ability, my speed of build. So therefore, I can deliver more quickly.
Right. So you're using Transform basically to do the mobile forms for the data collection.
Correct.
Right. And then you're capturing that data for further analysis or whatever in through Alpha.
So for example, it could be a company where they have requirement to go out and do surveys for their particular area of work.
Yeah.
So Alpha Anywhere application built will push out the surveys to the surveyors in the field. Surveyors will complete these forms, on Alpha Transform on their smart device, and then when they're submitted, they come straight back into the Alpha Anywhere application I built. I'm using the webhooks to pull the data back in.
Yeah, nice.
So it just works, and again, that's kudos to Alpha for having that strong interaction between Alpha Anywhere and Alpha Transform. It just makes it work.
And is that data typically going back into like a SQL database somewhere, or what do you typically use as your backend database?
I'm using Microsoft SQL Server database.
SQL Server
as a choice. And then Amazon S3 for storage. So getting photographs back in, getting data back in, putting it back in using webhooks. Again, I templated, so therefore I just have to adjust that template based on the complexity of the data coming back in. Some forms are really simple, and I could develop a form in a matter of a couple of hours, and within a day have it putting data back in. It could be that quick. Others could be more complicated. One seriously complicated survey form that's taken several months to develop and get it right. But even then, the development time I've done on it compared to what I've had to done if I build a native app, I just don't have that use case.
Gotcha. I was just looking at some of the questions that you answered on the questionnaire I sent out to you. And one of the things you mentioned was you did some work for the NFL, the American NFL. Can you talk about that? That sounds kind of interesting.
It's how I got into doing data work because way back when, over here, as you know, it's our part of American football. We call it American football here because we've got
right. Yes.
But I got involved in a local team, I got involved with sports statistics. And because I got involved with sports statistics, I then got involved in collating statistics for the leagues over here. And I was given an old pre-PC machine to actually collate it all using Lotus 123 spreadsheet clone.
Uh-huh.
And I looked at that and thought, no way, that's just not fit for purpose. So I took it upon myself to, to convert to a database system, and found a new version of SQL and started to build it. So that's how I got into the data management side of things.
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
on the story short, but then I got involved with becoming the stats crew chief for the NFL games that took place here. The preseason games took back in the late 80s, early 90s, and then the NFL Europe League was NFL sponsored, and now the London International Series games, which are the NFL regular season games that have been taking place for the past 14 odd years. I'm the official stats crew chief for them. So I run stats crews to collect those data. So effectively, I run the 33rd stats crew for the NFL.
Wow.
32 teams plus the London one. So, and I work with football technology people in New York when they come here each year for the games. So that's kind of where my involvement has developed into. So yes, I'm a NFL statistician.
You know, it's amazing how much of that is done in all kinds of sports. I'm pretty heavily involved with racing, and the analysis that now goes into I do a lot of sim racing, and the analysis that goes into becoming good. You know, you can get good without analyzing, you know, really analyzing your telemetry, but to get good, you really have to capture all the telemetry. You know, when am I applying brakes? Where, you know, throttle positioning, turn in points, brake points, everything. And you need to compare that to guys that are you know, are better than you, pros. And that's the only way you end up getting better is you have to analyze that data. And of course, you know, that comes natural to guys like you and me. So it's kind of fun. I enjoy that.
Yeah, it is. It's enjoyable use, but it's actually what got me into database systems. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That went. Yeah.
I remember when I first got into it was microcomputers. So this was back in like 79. One of the first things that I started working with, you know, was databases. And I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. I mean, so I got involved with databases, did a lot of work with DBase 2 back in the day.
Yeah.
And that was sort of my first introduction to it. And I got pretty good at that. And then the other next thing became computer aided design. So I was in computer aided design for like 20 years. And then I married the CAD stuff with database stuff, which was kind of fun too. So anyway, guys like you and I have been doing this a long time and understand, I think that, you know, the power that we hold in our hands, yeah, you know, and we can envision very quickly, you know, how to make a process better. And so I think, you know, hey, experience matters here, you know, and that's a good thing for guys like you and me.
It absolutely does matter, because you can look at it from the perspective of the client that you're talking to. And you can actually sometimes come up with tangible reasons why it would be better. So, for example, they might have a process, and I have so many real world examples of what's happened. But
yeah,
one of them, one rings a bell, is that there was one particular company that Friday had one person all day Friday generated about 90 to 100 reports and then getting them sent out by email to 90 to 100 clients. It took them all day Friday. So I came in, looked at that process, and converted that into this on a Friday morning. 5 minutes later, all the emails are out. 5 minutes after that, go and Catalan and have a cup of coffee because you're done. Yeah. So now, in real world terms, there was like at least 7 hours, you know, every Friday freed up for that person now. So that company then, instead of having somebody they were paying money to do an administrative function, turn that person into somebody who could go out and look for business over those 7 hours. There's very much a tangible benefit I could offer the client to justify the paying me to do it in the first place.
Yeah.
And there's those sort of things you only get through experience. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, I want to wrap up today. And one of the things that I want to ask you before I wrap up, Glenn, is do you have any advice for anybody who's just jumping into learning alpha? Maybe they come from there's so many different avenues that could lead you to looking at alpha, and just wondering if you have any advice you give any new guys coming in, anything from just how did you get up to speed with it? What do you lean on for support? Things like that.
Okay, well, first things first, with Alpha, it's such a feature-rich product. There's so many bells and whistles in the system that it can, when you first look at it, you can kind of not see where really to head to. So I would say the first port of call I would say is look at the UX component. Don't look at the legacy components and everything else. Look at the UX component as being
UX,
the
yeah.
to build Africa. And also know the fact that Alpha lets you get under the hood, so that if you've got JavaScript skills, you can use them. If you've got CSS skills, you can definitely use them. So in general code, so you can hood on it. But I think really it's just and know the fact that Alpha leverages industry standard systems and processes, JavaScript, JSON, Node, all these things that you can connect with and use for. But once you start to get to grips with it, you realize that Alpha will do the heavy lifting for you. Then I think there's no turning back. I haven't yet to find another product out there that does anything like Alpha does, that has a low-code title that allows you to get under the hood and really leverage it. And some of the results out there are amazing.
Yep. Okay, great. Well, listen, Glenn, I want to thank you for joining us here today, just sharing your thoughts, and it's been fun talking to you. Thanks so much again, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.